Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we unpack complex topics. We aim to give you the knowledge you need, but, in a way that's thorough and actually engaging.
hmm
And for this very first deep dive on the MD Talk Health Hacks podcast, we're tackling something truly fascinating. Hacking longevity.
Yeah, a huge topic.
Right. You, our listener, are probably curious about extending lifespan, sure, but maybe more importantly, health span, those vital years of, well, vibrant living.
Absolutely. Health span is key.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore together today.
Definitely. And for this dive, well, we've gathered a ton of information, everything from historical views on aging
Right.
to the really groundbreaking scientific research, the latest discoveries about why we age, and of course, all the fascinating talk around interventions and the real health hacks, you could say.
The hack.
Our mission today, really, is to pull out the crucial bits, the surprising nuggets of knowledge, and just bring some clarity to this field, because it can feel overwhelming.
It really can. Okay, so let's unpack this. It feels like this quest for a longer, healthier life is a modern thing, an obsession almost. But the idea itself, it's been around for ages, hasn't it?
Oh, it truly has. Way back, you had thinkers like Plato seeing aging as, well, distinct from disease. He thought a balanced life could lead to harmony.
Interesting.
Aristotle, though, he saw it more as just natural decline. But honestly, for most of history, aging was just accepted, an unavoidable part of life.
Which makes perfect sense, really. Back then, you were much more likely to, I don't know, run into a predator or catch a nasty disease long before old age became the main concern.
Exactly. Survival was the priority.
So when did the science, the real scientific understanding of aging, start to take shape?
You really have to look to the 20th century for that.
Yeah.
That's the true dawn of modern scientific study. Big public health improvements early on.
Like sanitation, vaccines?
Precisely. They drastically cut infant mortality, curbed infectious diseases, and suddenly average lifespan shot up. And that progress opened a new door for researchers. Could we actually push our maximum lifespan further?
And one of those early names was Clive McKay. With the calorie restriction work, that was pretty influential.
Hugely influential. Yeah, back in 1939, McKay showed with lab rats that cutting their calorie intake by about 30% significantly increased their lifespan.
Wow.
It was pivotal. The first solid evidence, really, that lifespan wasn't just fixed. You could actually change it with an intervention.
That is significant. And then as the century went on, other key discoveries started building on that foundation.
Yes, absolutely. You've got Leonard Hayflick in 1961. He discovered what we now call the Hayflick Limit.
Okay.
He showed human cells in a dish. Yeah. They only divide a certain number of times.
Right.
Then they basically stop, enter this dormant state.
A state we now call cellular senescence.
That's the one, senescence. It really hinted at some kind of internal biological clock, something ticking away inside our cells.
So aging wasn't just random wear and tear accumulating. It might be programmed in somehow.
That was the implication. And this idea really gained speed in the 80s and 90s. Some incredible genetic research, mainly in nematode worms, believe it or not.
Worms, okay.
Yeah, tiny worms. Michael Klass showed in '88 that specific gene mutations could extend their lives. Then Cynthia Kenyon's work. That really made waves.
What did she find?
She discovered that changing just a single gene in these worms, it's called DAF2, could actually double their lifespan.
Double. Wow, that's astonishing. Just one gene.
It was revolutionary, truly. It
Yeah.
showed us aging isn't just random damage piling up. It's actually controlled, at least partly, by specific genetic pathways.
Pathways like.
Researchers identify the insulin IGF-1 signaling pathway as a key player.
Yeah.
Turning down the activity of this pathway through genes like DAF2 consistently made these simple organisms live longer.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Treating aging itself as a fundamental biological process, something we can understand and maybe even tweak.
Exactly.
That shift led to geroscience emerging, right? Early 2000s.
That's precisely it. Geroscience was this move towards targeting the basic biology of aging. The idea was, instead of fighting individual diseases like heart disease, cancer, dementia, one by one, you target the underlying aging process that makes us vulnerable to all of them in the first place.
And as scientists dug deeper into that biology, they needed a way to organize it all, which led to frameworks like the Hallmarks of aging.
Yes, exactly. The Hallmarks of Aging framework, which really took hold in the early 2010s, gives us a structured way to think about it. It categorizes the key biological processes driving that age-related decline.
Kind of like the fundamental mechanisms that start to go wrong.
You got it. Think of them as the core issues.
And there are 9 of these hallmarks, I believe. Our body's kind of blueprint for decline, in a way.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, 9 interconnected processes that the scientific community generally agrees are the major drivers.
Okay, let's touch on them. What are some examples?
Well, you've got genomic instability. That's basically damage accumulating in our DNA over time. Then there's telomere attrition, the shortening of those protective caps on our chromosomes.
Ah, yes, the telomeres, like the plastic tips on shoelaces, people say, protecting the important stuff inside.
Exactly. And every time a cell divides,
They get shorter.
they get shorter until they reach a critical length. And that tells the cell, okay, stop dividing, or triggers that senescence state we mentioned.
Right, which impacts tissues that need constant repair, like skin or the immune system.
Precisely. It contributes to the aging of those tissues.
Okay, makes sense. What's next on the list?
Next up, epigenetic alterations. Epigenetics. It's all about how our genes are switched on or off, without changing the actual DNA code.
Uh-huh.
As we age, these epigenetic markers can get messed up,
Yeah.
dysregulated. Cells don't function quite right.
And this is where those biological clocks come in.
Exactly. It's fascinating. These changes are predictable enough that scientists have developed biological clocks, like the Horvath clock, based on DNA methylation patterns. They can actually estimate your biological age.
A measurable biological age. That's mind-blowing. And wasn't there some really exciting news recently about potentially reversing those changes?
Yes. Just last year, 2023, David Sinclair's group at Harvard showed in mice that messing up the epigenome drives aging. But crucially,
Yes.
they also showed that restoring that epigenetic information could actually reverse some signs of aging in those mice.
Wow. So it's like aging is partly losing the instructions, and you can
Yeah.
rewrite them.
Sort of like restoring the software, almost like hitting reset to rejuvenate the cells.
Incredible. Like defragging your hard drive. Okay, what other hallmarks are critical?
Another big one is loss of proteostasis. That's the cell's ability to maintain its proteins, keep them folded correctly, clear out damaged ones.
Protein maintenance.
Right. When that fails, proteins misfold, clump together. Think amyloid plaques and Alzheimer's.
Ah, okay.
The deregulated nutrient sensing. This involves pathways that sense nutrients, insulin IGF-1, mTOR, AMPK, sirtuins. These often get out of balance with age.
And this connects back to calorie restriction, doesn't it? Influencing these pathways.
Precisely. Caloric restriction seems to work, in part, by tweaking these nutrient sensors, activating protective pathways. And some drugs, like rapamycin, target these networks too, kind of mimicking fasting.
Okay. What about mitochondria, the cell's power plants?
Mitochondrial dysfunction, definitely a key hallmark. They become less efficient at making energy as we age,
Uh-huh.
and they can leak more damaging molecules, reactive oxygen species, or ROS, that causes more damage, fuels aging.
And then those zombie cells we keep hearing about.
Cellular senescence,
Right.
right? The cells that stop dividing but refuse to die. And they're not quiet neighbors.
Yeah.
They spew out inflammatory stuff, other harmful molecules. We call it the SSP, senescence-associated secretory phenotype. It damages nearby healthy cells.
Yikes.
So here's the kicker. That 2016 research showed that clearing these senescent cells in mice, it significantly extended their healthy lifespan, sometimes by 17 to 35%.
Whoa. Just getting rid of the zombie cells had that big an effect.
A really significant impact, yeah, on healthy aging.
Okay, 2 more hallmarks left.
Penultimate one, stem cell exhaustion. Our stem cell reserves, crucial for replacing worn-out cells, they dwindle in number and function as we age.
So tissue repair weakens? Immunity, maybe?
Both weakens regeneration, weakens the immune system, and finally, altered intercellular communication.
How cells talk to each other.
Exactly. The signals change, often becoming more pro-inflammatory. This chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging, causes problems throughout the body.
Right, I remember hearing about those parabiosis experiments.
Yeah.
Linking young and old mice bloodstreams.
Yeah, those suggested factors in young blood might have rejuvenating effects. It all points to communication breakdown.
It's amazing how they're all connected, not just one thing, but this complex web of factors going awry.
It really is a cascade.
So with all these biological processes involved, how much does it boil down to our genes versus, how we live, nature versus nurture?
The classic question. And the answer for longevity is fascinating. Genetics seems to account for only about maybe 20 to 30% of the variation in human lifespan.
Only 20–30%. That's less than I might have guessed.
It really is. Which means lifestyle and environment play a huge role, a really powerful role and how long and how well we live.
So even if you draw a lucky genetic hand.
It's not the whole story.
Hmm.
Sure, some gene variants like APOE2 or FOXO3 are more common in centenarians, people living past 100, but they don't guarantee it.
Right.
You see people with those good genes who don't live exceptionally long because of lifestyle, and vice versa. People with less ideal genetics living long, healthy lives because they made good choices.
That's actually really empowering. So what are those common threads, the lifestyle factors that keep popping up in superagers?
Well, studies of centenarians consistently point to a few things. Not smoking is a big one, managing stress effectively, staying socially connected and engaged, and avoiding obesity. And then you have the blue zones, those places with lots of healthy older people.
Right, like Okinawa, Sardinia.
Exactly. Their lifestyles often share common ground. Plant-heavy diets, regular, natural physical activity part of daily life, not just gym sessions. Strong community ties, moderate intake overall.
It's like that saying, genes load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger.
That's a perfect analogy.
Oh.
A really good way to think about it. Your genes might give you predispositions, but your life choices heavily influence the outcome.
Does genetics play a bigger role later on, maybe? In extreme old age?
It seems like it might, yeah. For people reaching, say, 105 or 110, genetics probably plays a more dominant role. They likely have a particularly resilient biology.
But they probably still had pretty healthy habits along the way to get there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lifestyle lays the foundation. We'll definitely dive deeper into centenarian studies like the New England Centenarian Study and amazing cases like Jean Calment living to 122 in future deep dives here on MD Talk Health Hacks.
Looking forward to that.
And we'll also look at how animal research, like manipulating IGF-1 and MTOR in mice, often mirrors what we see in long-lived humans. It gives us valuable clues.
Okay, so we've got the why, the hallmarks, and the how much nature versus nurture, with lifestyle being key. Now for the really cutting-edge stuff, reprogramming aging. Telomeres. Let's get into that.
Wait, this is where it starts to feel almost sci-fi, but the research is real. We talked about epigenetic marks changing with age, altering gene expression.
Yeah, the biological clocks.
Exactly. Those clocks are surprisingly accurate. Now, the big idea, can we actually reverse those epigenetic changes? Rejuvenate cells, maybe whole organisms?
Hit the reset button on aging.
That's the concept. Using what are called Yamanaka factors, specific genes that can reprogram adult cells back to a stem cell-like state, basically erasing their age and identity.
Whoa. But isn't that risky, like causing cancer?
That's the major hurdle with full reprogramming in a living thing, yes. Cancer risk is significant. But the idea of partial reprogramming, a gentler reset, that's showing real promise in lab studies.
I remember hearing about some incredible animal studies.
Yes. A key one in 2016. They used intermittent Yamanaka factors in mice with progeria, that rapid aging condition. It extended their lifespan and improved tissue function.
Amazing.
Then in 2020, Sinclair's lab did something remarkable. Restored vision in old mice by reprogramming nerve cells in their eyes.
Restored vision in old mice. That sounds futuristic.
It really does. The hope is maybe we can achieve some form of age reversal at the cellular level in humans. But, it's still very early days.
Caution is needed.
Extreme caution.
Yeah.
Especially with the cancer risk. The goal is controlled rejuvenation, reset the cells without losing their function or making them cancerous. Big companies like Altos Labs, Calico, they're pouring money into this. We'll be watching closely.
And lifestyle ties into this too, right? Diet, stress, they affect epigenetics.
Absolutely. Suggesting we might have some control even now.
And we can't forget telomeres, the chromosome caps, also tightly linked to aging.
Definitely. As we said, they shorten with cell division. Eventually, they get too short, signal cells to stop dividing or become senescent. It's a big factor in tissue aging.
So the obvious thought is, if we could lengthen them, maintain them, could that extend health span, lifespan?
The animal studies are compelling. In mice, boosting telomerase, the enzyme that lengthens telomeres, has delayed some aging aspects and extended lifespan in certain studies, especially if you activate it in adult mice.
Like that 2012 gene therapy study, about a 24% extension?
Exactly. And those hyperlong telomere mice studies also showed slower aging signs.
But there's that balance again, isn't there? You can't just have telomerase going wild from birth.
Precisely. Earlier studies back in the 90s showed activating it from birth could increase cancer risk in some mice. It seems like an evolutionary trade-off.
Suppress cancer versus allowing tissue repair?
Kind of. Short telomeres help stop uncontrolled division, but contribute to tissue aging. Lengthening them later might rejuvenate, but we need safe ways to do it. It's a delicate balance.
A fundamental trade-off built into us.
Seems that way. Animals without telomerase often get less cancer but age faster. Those with more might repair better but risk tumors. Zebrafish studies show this beautifully. And lifestyle matters here too. Stress shortens telomeres. Exercise helps maintain them. Elizabeth Blackburn's Nobel-winning work was key here.
Okay, reprogramming telomeres. Super exciting possibilities. Now, what about clearing out those zombie senescent cells? That sounds like a really promising therapy.
It really is. As we said, they build up, release harmful stuff. That 2016 breakthrough, clearing them in normal mice, extended a healthy lifespan by 25–35%. That was huge.
A turning point.
Definitely. It showed they drive aging, they aren't just markers.
And that led directly to senolytics, drugs to kill those cells.
Exactly. The combo of dasatinib, an existing drug, and quercetin, a natural compound, showed strong senolytic activity in the lab. Kills senescent cells.
And human trials are happening.
Yes, early ones.
Yeah.
For conditions linked to senescence, like lung fibrosis, diabetic kidney disease. Some encouraging early signs, improvements in function, biomarkers.
That sounds positive. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing, right? Weren't there some setbacks?
No, it hasn't. Unity Biotechnology had a senolytic trial for knee osteoarthritis fail back in 2020. It was a reality check.
Why did it fail?
Hard to say for sure. Was it the drug combo? The dose? Was severe osteoarthritis just too tough a target? It highlights the difficulty of translating lab results to humans. Science is iterative. Rigorous trials are essential.
So, using senolytics for general healthy aging, that's still being figured out.
Very much so. We need to be careful. Senescent cells might have good roles too, like in wound healing or stopping cancer early on.
So just wiping them all out might not be the best idea.
Probably not that simple. Maybe intermittent use, targeting specific tissues.
Yeah.
Starting later in life, the approach likely needs to be more nuanced.
Okay, let's shift gears. Sirtuins, NAD plus clade, David Sinclair, that whole area gets a lot of buzz.
It certainly does. Sirtuins are proteins, key regulators linked to lifespan extension in many lab models. Think longevity genes.
And they need NAD plus to work.
Crucially dependent on NAD plus. Yeah, it's a coenzyme. The problem is NAD plus levels drop as we age. That impacts sirtuins, DNA repair, mitochondria, lots of things.
And this is where resveratrol came in, the red wine compound. It was meant to activate sirtuins.
That was the initial excitement, yeah. Sinclair's early work suggested resveratrol-activated SRT1 mimicked calorie restriction effects in yeast, other models.
But that story got more complicated.
It did. Our understanding now is more nuanced. How exactly it works, how effective it is in humans. It's debated. It might have benefits, but potent, direct SRT1 activation in humans. Probably not its main thing. It's considered a relatively weak activator now.
But the focus shifted more towards NAD plus itself, using precursors like NMN and NR.
Yes, that's gained more traction. Boosting NAD plus levels directly with precursors like nicotinamide mononucleotide NMN or nicotinamide riboside NR. Many mouse studies show improvements, muscle function, endurance, insulin resistance in older animals.
So the idea is more NAD plus means more fuel for sirtuins and other repair processes.
That's the theory. By boosting NAD plus WAS, you help aging cells maybe regain some youthful function. Support those NAD-dependent enzymes.
So NAD plus is like a fundamental cellular currency for repairs.
Excellent analogy. Essential currency for tons of critical reactions. Human trials are ongoing. Early results on big health outcomes are a bit mixed so far.
But they do boost NAD plus levels safely.
Generally, yes. The trials confirm safety and show NAD plus levels go up. The big question remains, does that translate into significant long-term health benefits for humans? Research is ongoing.
And Sinclair has been a big proponent of NMN specifically.
He has, which has sparked discussion, even regulatory stuff like the FDA's recent position on NMN. It's where supplements meet potential drug development. It's also fair to say some of his more dramatic claims about age reversal in mice have faced scrutiny from other scientists.
Right, questions about definitions and how well it applies to us.
Exactly. It's a field with huge potential, but requires rigorous science and, frankly, some healthy skepticism. But, as we mentioned, his 2023 epigenetic reprogramming study in mice after DNA damage, showing youthful restoration. That adds another fascinating piece. And we should mention others too, like Nir Barzilai with the TAME trial on metformin, Aubrey de Grey, and the Epigenetic on damage repair.
Right. It's a whole community pushing this forward. So the last decade really feels like a shift from just understanding aging to actively testing interventions. What are some standout studies or trials from the past 10 years?
Absolutely. We've seen major progress, geroprotected drugs like rapamycin showing consistent lifespan extension in mice, even started late in life. Now the Pearl trial is testing it in older humans.
And metformin, the TAME trial.
Huge deal. The TEAM trial is rigorously testing if metformin, a common diabetes drug, can delay multiple chronic diseases in older adults, 65-79. It's groundbreaking because it targets aging itself as the goal, even if the endpoints are specific diseases.
Yeah, navigating the whole aging isn't technically a disease thing for approval must have been tricky.
Exactly. Beyond those, lots of trials on NAD precursors, senolytics, even things like the peptide humanin. Stem cell therapies, two small trials showing hints of improved frailty, maybe even thymus regeneration in the TREAM study. Though that was small, no control group, so very preliminary.
And the young blood stuff, plasma exchange, where does that stand?
Well, the mouse parabiosis experiments were intriguing, connecting circulatory systems.
Right.
Simple young blood transfusions didn't pan out. But therapeutic plasma exchange, removing old plasma, replacing it with albumin or saline, has shown some interesting, though still early, results in Alzheimer's patients. But it's also seeing controversy, like the Ambrosia company selling unproven young plasma infusions, leading to FDA warnings. Needs solid evidence.
Definitely. And we're still learning from nature, right?
Yeah.
Long-lived animals.
Absolutely. Naked mole rats, bowhead whales, their resistance to aging, their DNA repair, invaluable clues, even unusual things like ovary transplants in mice or fecal microbiota transplants,
Yeah.
showing surprising health benefits in animal models.
It really feels like we're actively testing tangible ways to influence aging now. Okay, let's talk brain. Longevity isn't just physical. Cognitive health is crucial.
Couldn't agree more. Sharp cognitive function is key to quality of life, especially in older age. We know the basics help lifelong learning, exercise, good diet. Those support brain health.
But what about the more high-tech stuff? Neuralink, brain-computer interface.
All right. Neuralink, Musk's company, gets a lot of press. Initial goal is helping people with paralysis, neurological issues.
How does that connect to longevity, though?
Several potential ways. Near term, BCIs could maybe offset decline from stroke, Parkinson's, restoring function, extending health span, independence. Further out, maybe long-term brain monitoring, detecting cognitive decline super early.
Interesting.
And then the really futuristic ideas. Cognitive enhancement, maybe even uploading consciousness. Highly speculative now, of course. Lots of ethical questions. But it's part of the discussion when we talk about pushing human limits.
So it's about maintaining quality of life, cognitive ability, independence for longer. What about more accessible brain hacks? Supplements people ask about. Lion's mane, omega-3s.
Well, lifelong learning, social connection, solid evidence there. For supplements like lion's mane or even omega-3s specifically for boosting cognition in healthy folks or preventing decline, the evidence is still evolving. We need more robust human studies.
So maybe helpful as part of a healthy lifestyle, but not magic bullets.
That's probably the best way to look at it right now.
It's wild to think about someone hitting 100 in the future, maybe with longevity meds and tech helping maintain their mind. Okay, let's bring it back to Earth. Practical steps. What health hacks, based on the science, can listeners actually consider now?
Right. Translating the science. Intermittent fasting or just mindful eating, whole foods, maybe some calorie awareness.
Yeah.
Good evidence for metabolic health, autophagy.
And exercise.
Still one of the best anti-aging tools we have. Aerobic, strength training. Consistently linked to lower mortality. Huge impact. And sleep. Prioritizing quality sleep. Healthy circadian rhythm. Absolutely vital for repair, hormones, overall health.
What about things like cold plunges, saunas? Are those legit biohacks?
They seem to work through hormesis, small stresses, making the body stronger. Cold exposure might have metabolic benefits, reduce inflammation. Finnish sauna studies link regular use to better cardiovascular health, lower mortality. Emerging evidence, but looks promising, just needs to be done safely.
And supplements. It's a minefield out there. What actually has decent backing?
It is confusing. Omega-3s, vitamin D, good evidence for specific benefits that contribute to overall health. For many others marketed as anti-aging, the human data is often limited.
So caution is advised.
Definitely. Be wary of claims not backed by strong human trials. NMN, NR being studied, but long-term human lifespan data isn't there yet. Resveratrol, fizetin interesting in labs, less clear in humans at achievable doses. Prioritize things with solid science.
And wearables, fitness trackers, glucose monitors, can they help?
They can be valuable tools, absolutely, for personalized insights. They don't directly extend lifespan, but they empower you to make healthier choices about diet, sleep, activity. That contributes to health span.
It sounds like the key is a balanced, evidence-based approach. Focus on the proven lifestyle stuff, stay informed on research, but don't jump on every unproven trend.
Exactly. The goal for most is improving health span years of healthy, vital living. That usually helps lifespan too. Healthy skepticism towards extreme or unproven hacks is wise. Stick with solid science.
Now, it's important to be realistic. Longevity science hasn't been a straight line up. There have been challenges, controversies, setbacks, right?
Absolutely. Science rarely is a smooth path. Remember that retracted 2010 paper on longevity, genes, technical errors. It shows science self-corrects, but also how hard this research is.
Uh-huh.
There was Vertrau's story too, initial hype, then more complex reality. Shows biological systems are tricky.
And haven't some things once touted as anti-aging actually turned out bad?
Yes, cautionary tales exist. Growth hormone for anti-aging. Didn't pan out. Potential risks. Megadose antioxidants.
Yeah.
Also disappointing, led to the antioxidant paradox idea, more isn't always better.
Right.
Plus, sadly, instances of data fabrication happen, and the constant challenge of regulating unproven treatments, misleading marketing, like the early failed blood transfusion attempts or the recent young plasma warnings. Both science and public awareness are crucial.
It's a good reminder that science is a process, trial and error. Not every exciting lab result works in humans. And there's even debate about basics, like should we even call aging a disease?
That's a huge ongoing discussion. Calling it a disease could speed up funding and drug development, but others worry about pathologizing a natural process. Big implications either way.
So as we wrap up this first deep dive into hacking longevity, what's the main message for our MD Talk Health Hacks listeners?
I think the key takeaway is that our longevity, our health span, it's this complex mix. Our genes play a part, sure, but our lifestyle choices are incredibly powerful. And on top of that, medical science is advancing rapidly.
So no single magic bullet yet.
No magic cure for aging? No. But we're making real, accelerating progress in understanding how it works and finding ways to potentially intervene to add more healthy years.
It feels like we're not necessarily stuck with historical limits. There's genuine hope for longer, healthier lives.
That's right. Average lifespans have already climbed dramatically. Biomedical research holds amazing promise to extend our healthy vitality even more. It'll likely be a combo approach, healthy habits plus targeted therapies down the line.
And looking ahead, if we do succeed in significantly extending healthy lifespan, what are the broader implications?
Profound ones. Social changes, economic shifts, ethical questions about access, huge things to consider, but also incredible potential people contributing longer, more time across generations. Maybe even things like organ regeneration, better brain-machine integration someday.
It's definitely an exciting field to watch, constantly evolving.
It truly is. You know, one researcher famously suggested the first person to live to 150 might already be born.
Yeah.
Time will tell, of course. But the research happening right now is paving the way for possibilities we couldn't have dreamed of just decades ago.
Well, this has been absolutely fascinating, a really insightful deep dive into longevity science. We really hope you, our listener, found it useful and got you thinking.
Hope so, too.
We definitely encourage you to keep exploring these topics. And please stay tuned for more deep dives on all things health and wellness right here on the MD Talk Health Hacks podcast.